This is the CreaseCast.
You can cut all this out, but I was so worried that after I finished my solo episode that I fucked up and didn't record properly. Because, like, obviously I would have had no idea if I'd done it right. And I just, like, was like, all right, I'm going to get this out of the way. Recorded everything and then just went through it. And then after I was done, got my cry out of the way. And I was like, okay, wait,
yeah,
I should download this and make sure it works. Download it. I'm like, oh, God. And Roxy looks at me. She's like, you're sure you got the settings right? Right?
Oh, Roxy, don't do that. You cannot
I got
put
so
the
worried.
fear
And then it was all fine, but it was like really funny. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know what? Like, that's a good place to start because you know what? Like, obviously that was your first episode by yourself, and you know, like, I was really looking forward to the fact that you were going to get to do your first episode. Whether that I had no idea what you were going to do for it. I didn't know if there was going to be like guests, or if there was going to be notes, what kind of notes how the format was going to go. And then obviously I listened to it, and I'm sad I couldn't be there. Not just because of the fact that obviously I love doing the show every week, but because what you went through and what you talked about is like so heartfelt and so close to home and important, and I'm sad I couldn't be there for that conversation, but hey, you did an incredible job.
Thank you.
Given the circumstances and everything, and everybody who we've heard from the last few days has said nothing but wonderful things about how well you handled that and how well you talked about it, which is great.
Yeah,
and
that was great.
Yeah, the one advice I was going to give you before the show, because seeing how you'd never hosted before, was, like, make it your own. Like, if there's something you want to do, if there's something that you are not, that maybe you wouldn't feel like you are able to do when I'm here or something, or rather what have you, just make it your own and try it, because you never know. You might be great. It might turn out great. And I'm glad that you used the time that you had to do the solo show to use it, and you used it well. You used it very well, and I'm proud of you, man. You did an incredible job.
Cheers, thanks. Yeah, like I had no idea what I was gonna do heading into the weekend, because obviously like the news hit, and it was kind of like that's like literally all I could ever think about for like. I mean, it still is like the only thing that's kind of been like echoing around my brain for the last 7 days now, or 8 days now since the news dropped. So was coming into recording on Tuesday. And like, I always like say these things. I'm like, I really hope my bosses do not listen to this, because I probably am like the anti-employee of the year when I'm like, I spent most of my workday putting down notes for what I wanted to talk about, and got on a roll for how I wanted to try and blend how the news from last Thursday tied in with current hockey events. And I spent most of my day on Tuesday doing that, even though I had a really busy day at work. So I managed to do both. So I don't know if that maybe elevates me from the anti-employee of the year to just like an employee. But anyways, thank you for your kind words. And thanks to everyone who listens to this program, who shared last Tuesday or Wednesday's episode. It means a lot. Obviously, very personal subject. I, for one, am glad you weren't there, though, because after I finished recording, I bawled my eyes out because I had finally just got like all of the verbal diarrhea of every frustration I'd had over the past few days out. And if you were there the entire time, after any point I'd make, I'd probably would have wanted to cry, and it would have taken 5 hours to record. So it's probably for the best that was actually a solo episode. So it was kind of, and
honestly, I would have been okay with that, because you know what,
yes.
it is. And this kind of goes back to just like the whole, there's the stereotype of, oh, men don't cry kind of thing, right? Like where you feel awkward crying in front of one of your bros, I guess, right? But like honestly, no, crying's natural. You let it out. It's important. It's an important part of emotion and being human. That's it. That's what it is. It's all about that. So
fortunately for me, I got away from those embarrassment of crying in front of my bros and in front of fellow men in like my peak high school years, because this just is a testament to what an athlete I am. My first game back in soccer because I took a year off because I had like knee issues. So I took a year off, came back, made my brilliant debut back as a goalkeeper. Actually, hey, I forgot.
Oh,
Nice
hey!
goal. Look at that.
So this is actually the CreaseCast.
This is kind of a CreaseCast, even though
hell yes,
it's a little different.
Hell
but,
yes.
But
no, it totally counts. I was a goalie in soccer too for like 2 minutes.
So everything's coming together.
Yeah.
So I went to go retrieve a ball. Was returning to the field with it. Went to go take the goalie kick. As I was running back to the field, I had managed to trip over my own feet, fell on my shoulder, dislocated it, and broke my collarbone. And
no!
Hit the goalie kick. Felt something was wrong, and then I went like this. Like I lifted both my arms up because it felt weird, and I heard it go pop back into place. And all of a sudden, all the shooting pain came to me, and I realized I had to take my because mind you, this was like house league soccer, so it was like the shit of shit. So you didn't have like multiple jerseys to go around, so I had to take the goalie jersey off and give it to my replacement as I bawled my eyes off. Mostly like, not really because of the pain, but just like embarrassment that like I'm finally back in soccer and I get taken out by myself in the most embarrassing way. And fun fact, my future wife was there at the game with a couple other friends, so it was just like everyone we knew because it was a house league, so like all our friends were on the team. Like we were shit. We won 0 games in 3 years. 0 games.
You won
I think
0
we tied
games in 3 years.
once.
God,
but
that's
in like
that's
in like
hard.
a 22 game season or whatever, winning 0 times out of 66 games is like fucking impossible.
That's
like
honestly kind of impressive that you went that you were that lousy. You're the
Cleveland
Cleveland
Detroit
Browns.
Red Wings. Yeah.
You're the Cleveland Browns for like 3 years.
Yeah, we were awful.
Oh man. I had 1 year where, and you know what, like you mentioned the house jerseys and stuff like that. I remember that, like, because that was the thing in hockey for us too. Weirdly, I think that's a Canadian thing. Interestingly enough, because all the teams I ever had here, we bought the jerseys, but like in house league hockey, our jerseys were a team set. We had a team set, of which when we left and moved to where I am now, which is California right now.
Yeah.
My mom may or may not have stolen the jersey that I wore, I could hang it on my wall, and I still have it.
Hell yeah.
My old Vancouver Spirit jersey. If Rob Williams is listening, I know he used to coach the VMHA. Do I need to take that back? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'll give you the $14 back. My bad.
Yeah, and one of those years, we had a team that was so bad, we only won one. And keep in mind, Vancouver hockey, you play about 2 games a weekend, and including like sometimes a doubleheader on like, so you'll play like 4 games in one weekend. We lost every game except for one that year. And that was partially because we did not have a proper goalie at the time. Although I ended up being the proper goalie by the end of the year because I'd already wanted to be goalie.
Fair.
And that year we were so bad that I played about half the year as a goalie and half the season as a forward, and I believe I led our team in goals. I had the most goals on the team. I had multiple multi-goal games, and I was really proud of myself that year. I think I finished with like 9 goals, and I was thrilled about that. Like that was
our team did not score. Our team maybe I think.
But that's soccer. You don't like when it's 0-0 is a common score. Yeah, 0-0
but even in house league, like you should accidentally score, and our team did not score. Like we had. For whatever reason, like our coach like didn't really quite get that you needed like people who could kick the ball like as your forwards, and he just had the guys that could run really fast, and they could not kick or to save their lives. Our defense had the most goals, and I think at the end of the year we totaled like 4 or 5. like I'm not kidding.
Incredible.
We were honestly one of the worst soccer teams over like a 3 to 4 year span. We were so fucking bad. That poor coach who invested so much time in like training, and I'm using the most asterisk possible on that because we were so bad. And then they joined the Super League, and they went super. And we won the Champions League. It was really wild.
We won Champions League. I don't watch enough soccer. I'm sure all of the soccer people we know are yelling at us for not knowing. enough about soccer.
Stop
Although that
calling
is
it soccer.
Yeah, football. My Scottish relatives, I'm sure, are
Just
thrilled.
disgusted
We should
with
talk
you,
about.
man.
We should actually talk about that on and off the post. That would be fun. Like heritage of like sports from where our families are from and stuff like that. Because literally all of my family comes from like soccer countries. Like hockey is not a thing in any of those countries. I was pretty much the first person to really be into hockey in my family. And I guess that we should probably transition into that because that's probably what they want to know.
Yeah, after 10.5 minutes of complete nonsense and our failed soccer careers, we're here to talk about some interesting news over the past couple days. Obviously, Lachlan makes his grand return to the CreaseCast. He's in California, unfortunately subjected to NBC broadcasts. I tweeted this the other day. I could not believe that Mike Babcock was on a fucking broadcast.
Had you not heard of that?
No,
Had
well,
you
like
not heard that was a thing?
I think I remember like a while ago they were like Mike Babcock's gonna be joining like the NBC broadcast, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be for next regular season or something. I didn't realize it was gonna be for the playoffs this year in the next like couple weeks. And I don't know, I guess I had the game on mute, so I didn't notice. But then all of a sudden, like it's like an intermission. I looked over and it's just like Mike Babcock and his like smiling face, and I'm like, really?
Well,
after every story about like abuse that's coming out, like with like the Chicago Blackhawks, like you're seriously sticking with Mike Babcock as like your on-air analyst? Are you kidding?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, well, so here's the thing. Again, if you've watched NBC as long as I haven't should I say watched rather than got subjected to? As a Canadian living in the States, it was very rare that you got any games that weren't NBC broadcasts, especially because the Sharks down here, their local network is Comcast Sports or NBC Sports now. And yeah, I've been I get to watch the NBC broadcasts again more regularly. They were showing them in Canada this year because of the playoffs and everything, the format, and not being able to send Canadian broadcasters down there. Because normally they do, right? Like, because normally they have Canadian broadcasters on hand, I think at least the majority of the series that are in the States.
Right.
When under normal circumstances, this year they can't, so NBC's doing them all. But like now getting to really watch it again has been very interesting after I think Drancer's talked about it multiple times this year that this year the Hockey Night in Canada broadcasts have been actually pretty good as opposed to like some years that they've been really hit or miss. There have been some weird moments I think especially lately Ron McLean's had a few iffy sort of situations his way, but but overall the broadcasts themselves have been very good. Yeah. And then you go to hearing Mike Babcock going they're going to take the opportunity to to work hard and all of those very Mike Babcock things.
His Babcockisms,
Babcockism. I'm just like, first of all, he's not charismatic. Why on earth is he on TV? Putting aside all the obvious reasons why Mike Babcock should probably not be on an NHL broadcast, he's not even really charismatic. Why is he on there? I don't get them. And for
someone
years,
owed him a favor.
Literally for years, they have been subjecting American hockey fans to Mike Milbury, Keith Jones, Anson Carter's very good. I'll give him that. Anson Carter's very good.
He's got personality.
Catherine Tappan is good as well. She knows what she's talking about. And they sometimes bring on the TSN people Bob McKenzie and Darren Drager sometimes who are much more recognizable and much more capable at the job sort of thing. Right. It's just really frustrating when you've spent 10 years watching these broadcasts get butchered by these guys, particularly
somehow get worse.
We've been talking about the Canucks. We've been rounding through the 10th anniversary of the 2011 series of the 2011 Cup run and everything, right? That entire playoffs, I am regularly scarred from because of having to hear over the course of the entire playoffs, Keith Jones literally just dumping on Luongo the entire time for anything, never giving him credit for what he was doing, for how well he did in those playoffs. Mike Milbury not obviously just being Mike Milbury, and the broadcasts themselves as once they got into the finals being super pro Bruins to a shocking degree. It was embarrassing. Like, it was just an embarrassing broadcast. And now you come back and I'm realizing, oh, hey, look, that commercial was on the last time I lived here. And it's been about 3 years. So, hey, what the hell's going on here? How are you not changing How are the commercials still the same? Like, boggles the mind. It doesn't need to be, I don't need to spend this much time on it. I'm sorry I have, but it's just like,
when it's this bad, you have to talk about it. I
will say I do get, I could potentially get the Road to the Cup series again now that I'm in ESPN Plus territory again. Because liked ESPN.
The Road to the Cup was always awesome.
Yeah, this is. I'm looking forward. Maybe I'll have to talk about it on on one of our shows later on when I get to watching it. But yeah, I mean the more important road nowadays though is not the Road to the Cup. It's the road to the 9th overall pick in the draft.
Yay!
Is it not? Yeah. Well, okay. So the Canucks got 9th overall in the lottery. They didn't move up, but they didn't move down.
Draft largely remained the exact same as their odds said they would.
Did it even move? Did it even
Seattle moved up to 2nd, and Anaheim dropped to 3. That's it.
Honestly, good for Seattle. Like, good for them that they're going to get a top 3 pick. I think Vegas, the rules were different, right? I don't think Vegas could get first overall if they had won. I think there was some rule.
I can't remember how that worked.
I believe the rule was the Knights could only select as high as 4th. So I think good. So good for them for changing that.
I believe it was a compensatory move because of the way they changed the rules with how you can protect players or like whatever they did to make it so that Seattle couldn't hold everyone hostage like Vegas did. So
I think it's the same rules, isn't it? It's the same expansion rules as last time. I don't think there's any change here.
Didn't they change something about like the eligible players or something? Or
maybe they did. I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe they changed something about like the way like what the difference is between like a no move and a no trade or something.
Maybe.
But either way, I mean the fact that the Canucks didn't drop in the draft order, that's kind of cause for celebration, is it not? I don't know. What do you think?
Infinity Gauntlet goes to
Infinity Gauntlet for the lottery balls that didn't move. Well done. Sure, why not? Let's give it to them.
Yeah, they did it. They kept Canucks fans a bit sane or more sane than usual. I mean, it would have been really funny if they had dropped a spot and no one else changed, frankly. But it's like in a year
somehow
in a year this bizarre. Yeah, like it doesn't even matter because the draft, like as most people have said, it's like Owen Power at number 1. Then there's 8 other players who are completely interchangeable. No clue who goes where. It's just about like which teams like which guy, and then there's everybody else. So it's like even if like the Canucks won this draft somehow, like they got first overall, like I don't even know if they'd be happy with it because it's like of course like, it's the draft with the most uncertainty. Right? Of course. Which would have been more Canucks than not moving at all, which is a bit lame for Team Chaos over here at Team CreaseCast.
Yeah, I will say this: it's very on brand for Buffalo that they won.
Oh my
God. They won in a kind of an awkward year to get the first overall pick, and most likely somehow, some way, will find a way to ruin it. They just will. Like it's just a guarantee that they will find some way to mess this up the way that they always do in that very Buffalo way.
They have to. I liked I think it was Jay Fresh, who's usually like the stats guy who compiles stats from like Evolving Hockey. Who else from Natural Stat Trick and Mika Blake McCurdy. And he like puts them all together in those like great charts that just show like a player's value. And he's like, all right, here's here's the draft order. And it was like a complete shit show. It was like Buffalo took like a goalie first overall and everyone got like really mad at him. They're like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, are you kidding me? And then he came out today and was like, I'm just fucking around. I think I may have ruined my credibility with what was what I thought was intentionally a really bad joke about the draft order. And I gotta say, I appreciate that because I mean, it would be very on brand for Buffalo to be like, oh, we don't have a goaltender, let's draft a goaltender first overall.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what Spencer
Hey,
Knight's working out for Florida. He's not first
Hey.
overall, but
Yeah, he went. Yeah, I mean, the last goalie to go first overall would have
Fleury.
been, or was it Rick DiPietro? Who went first?
No, it's Fleury, wasn't it?
You're. I think you're right. You know what? You're right because Fleury definitely came just before the lockout, whereas DiPietro was a little bit earlier because. Of course, Mike Milbury, who was the GM of the Islanders at the time, traded Luongo to the Panthers after drafting him 4th overall not that long before in a move that really didn't work out for them. Really worked out for the Canucks, but it did, and the Panthers as well, but did not work out for the Islanders. Poor Rick DiPietro. Fleury. But, it's like, what are you going to do? This draft is so weird. It could... It might as well just take the goalie or the Zamboni driver or something. Can we draft a GM in this draft? Is that allowed?
Because obviously, you and I don't really know too much about the draft. I don't know. We'll probably reach out to some people to try and get someone on the show who actually knows what they're talking about. But
that'd be really good. We should.
This is my thoughts on the draft in general from the Canucks perspective. If their guy, the guy they want at 9, isn't available, and it's just taking a best pick available, I would look at dropping back in the draft and trying to pick up another pick, because they need help very badly. So if some teams hey, we'll give you 16th overall and a 3rd round pick plus 3rd pair defenseman X for 9th overall, they have to jump on that. And I think that's a great way to try to maximize the value that they're currently sitting on with the top 10 pick.
To a certain extent, they've almost gotten to a point where they need quantity over quality a little bit. Yeah. And in this particular draft, that might not be you might not be choosing between that necessarily because of how weird the scouting is and everything this year. We've heard multiple times before that. Guys who would normally be in the first round, you might not see go into the 4th or 5th just because people have not been able to do the scouting that they normally would like to be able to do. So, if there is any year to kind of go, okay, we don't necessarily need the highest pick possible. Let's try trading down and just accumulating as many picks from there as possible.
Yeah.
That might honestly be in your best interest. You could end up, if your scouting department does its job the way it's supposed to, you could end up with a lot of hidden gems that you wouldn't get have absolutely no chance of getting in a normal year. So why not look for that? I think who's the interest right now? I think it's someone Cam Robinson has been talking about quite a bit. Mason
McTavish.
Mason McTavish is the one that I believe they're bringing up, and then of course people want to see Luke Hughes go to the Canucks because he's Quinn's brother. There are options out there. Again, they're in a situation where they shouldn't necessarily be drafting at all, even from what do we need? Because any guy that's coming in is not going to be ready for at least a couple years. So just take what's available. Forward, defenseman. Yes, they need defensive help right now, but they're not getting that immediately. So just go for the best player. Go for the best player available that you like. And if they're not there, then try and accumulate as many picks as you can and just get as many tickets for the lottery as you can, for the prospect lottery, right? Yeah.
If you can move down in every single round and pick up extra picks for doing so, then go for it.
Yeah. Unless there is someone you absolutely like that you need that pick right away to get because you think someone's going to beat you to it, then keep that one and go for it. And that's kind of the strategy that I think they've lost at some points where they just have not been able to really look at it that way and have just sometimes waited, maybe taken a guy a little early that they probably could have waited and got a little bit later had they made a trade. They've done that before. And this year, there's no reason not to. Just go for it.
Yeah. So then that's pretty much it for Canucks news. There's really not a whole lot going on in the Canucks world. I think obviously they're basically waiting for the playoffs to shake out. They might try and sign a couple more players. They've already signed Podkolzin and Karl Plasik, but Other than that, you're going to see like a couple more ELCs maybe handed out if they see fit. But where there hasn't been any kind of rumors from anyone else in the prospect scouting community, so
Yes,
it's probably going to be it until the expansion draft, and then until the actual draft itself.
Yes, which is why I have brought in a new segment today. If you've seen the sheet, Cody, I have brought in a segment because you're right. Like there will be probably no Canucks news for a little bit. So we kind of, I don't want to say we need to make some up, but it's more of the, because that's not our jobs. We do not make up news. Speculation. So, and for that specific reason, I'm calling this segment Into the Canuck-verse, like Into the Spider-Verse. It's this idea of, okay, let's say
I just got that.
Yeah, it's like an alternate universe where maybe this shakes out sort of thing, and maybe this could, and we're talking about it specifically on the idea of like, hey, this is maybe something that could happen if everything went perfectly. Let's kind of just let's discuss it a little bit, just because I thought it was kind of interesting. Yeah. Obviously the Leafs are out of the playoffs. I am very sad I was not able to come on the show to talk about that on Tuesday as well. Yeah. Just a absolute meme series, meme ending, terrific. Just
pure comedy
on every level. Including the amount of people who, think the Leafs need to already blow it up. That's a little bit bonkers. I understand, I will say I understand from a certain aspect of, the idea of, worrying maybe that you've kind of poisoned the well in the sense of now these guys only know nothing but, playoff failure over and over and over again and kind of choking at the wrong time. Sometimes that is a little bit hard to recover from as a whole unit. But they shouldn't panic. They absolutely should not go in this weird, okay, we're going to trade Marner and Matthews and Nylander. We're going to trade Nylander first because he was terrible, even though he was their best player.
He was their best player.
Their
best forward at least.
Exactly. Yeah, he was their best. He was their best forward. Their best defenseman was Morgan Rielly. And the interesting thing about Morgan Rielly is that he is coming up with the last year of his contract. He does not, and the Leafs have cap crunch, a huge cap crunch coming up. And there's already a lot of discussion in Toronto that they might not be able to hang on to him, that they might have to move him this offseason to make room because they just don't have a lot. They have a lot of guys whose contracts they are up and they kind of need to deal with. At the very least, they probably won't be able to afford him next year when he's a UFA. Yeah. So the question becomes, well, are they going to trade him now to kind of get the return on him, or are they because they're going to make the playoffs regardless? They're not a we'll wait until the trade deadline sort of situation. So do they trade him now to recoup assets, or do they try and go for it one more year with him on the team? And I wanted to talk about the idea of Morgan Rielly potentially coming to the Canucks, specifically because he's a Vancouver kid. He could be interested in coming to the team, and he, as far as his cap hit is concerned, it's only $5 million right now. So, which is, from a general standpoint, is incredibly cheap for what he's able to do, for what his capabilities are. So I wanted to ask the question today of what do you think, what would a package, an off-season trade package include for the Canucks to get Morgan Rielly from Toronto in a deal that makes kind of sense for both teams? What would that kind of, whether that's insanity or not, what would it have to shake up to do you think if you're the Leafs and the Canucks?
It would be your 9th overall pick is the starting point. Then you're throwing in Jack Rathbone. You're also probably taking back more cap from Toronto as well, because they're going to be like, you guys don't have anything of value that we want. So why don't you help us out? And then we'll consider it. Because realistically speaking, all the players like the Canucks have that you would be using in deals are too expensive. Right. Like the Leafs don't want Tyler Mott at 1.275 or whatever it is, because they can't afford that. They need guys that are $1 million or less. So if you're from the Leafs, if you're Lawrence Gilman, you're like, okay, give me something that I can work with. Why don't you trade me why don't you give me Michael Furlan so I can put him on my books as LTIR and capture that. Then we're talking a bit, but you're still going to have to take Morgan Rielly, and you're going to have to take, I don't know, Pierre Engvall or something, right? Or take, I don't even know. That's the thing is like most of Toronto's guys right now are expiring, so they need guys that are cheap. Canucks do not have anyone that is cheap super that would be useful to them.
That's exactly. Like a super cheap, good bargain.
Yeah, because Tyler Mott is cheap relatively. But
Tyler Mott's an interesting idea.
They need cheap. Real cheap.
Tyler Mott's I like, you know what? Here's the thing. As much as I love Tyler Mott, like, let's say the Leafs want, like, I would not, like, if I'm the Leafs, is he not an upgrade on, say, like, Alex Galchenyuk in your bottom six? Is he not an upgrade on, like you mentioned, Pierre Engvall? Or, you know, they just traded a second rounder for Nick Foligno. Like, is he not kind of a more capable, like, more capable of kind of being that kind of a cheaper option, safe option in your bottom four who contributes regularly?
Here's the thing.
Some of those guys, at least some of them.
I think Tyler Mott is good on the Canucks because he plays with guys who don't do anything. So he's going to look very good in comparison when he's sitting on a line with Brandon Sutter or Jay Beagle, and he's the only guy scoring goals. You put him on the Leafs, and he doesn't score goals because he's, you know, being pigeonholed into the fourth line with like Adam Brooks and, you know, 48-year-old Patrick Marleau who comes back on a league minimum deal. But he's not going to be scoring on a Leafs team because he's not that good. He just looks good on the Canucks because, like,
wasn't Jimmy Vesey better on the Leafs than he was on the Canucks? Like, didn't he have better number? Wasn't he putting up better numbers on that unit than he was? Because I feel like they're a team that's pretty good about bringing guys up and having guys punch a little bit above their weight necessarily. Ilya Mikheyev being a bit of an exception here. He has not done as well. He has not looked as good. He is
right. So if you're the Leafs, maybe you're like, we'll trade you Mikheyev or whatever, but he has no PK utility to you, and he doesn't really score, and it's just like a marginal upgrade for the Leafs only. So they're the ones that benefit, right?
The one thing you mentioned that I do also find interesting as well is that, again, because the Leafs are so cap-strapped, the one thing that we have been talking about for a while, like, well, I say we, like the general we, lots of podcasts, lots of shows, lots of people have been talking about, is that the Canucks are in a position where the Seattle expansion draft, they could benefit from other teams that are cap-strapped. Toronto is one of them. Like, is there a situation where, say, like, they need to protect more forwards than they'd like? Where that you might say, okay, we'll take Rielly, and we'll take Rielly off your hands, and then we also take somebody else. Like, there's someone that they just don't want to lose, say, in the expansion draft, that they just want to make sure that they don't just get nothing out of, like, where that sort of a situation pops up for them.
I don't know if this is like legal in the current construct of the CBA or like the expansion draft rules, but I'm genuinely curious if a team like the Leafs could be like, okay, we want to protect like Zach Hyman, but we can't when we re-sign him, right? We can't protect him because we're obligated to protect all these guys with no move clauses on our decor or whatever. I'm wondering.
Wow, yeah, they have a lot.
They have a lot. Like, they're giving Jim Benning a run when it comes to no movement clauses. But if I'm like, I don't know if this is possible, so like I'm just probably speaking nonsense, but wouldn't you be like, okay, Vancouver Canucks, you have no one worth protecting. Like, you have an open slot basically on your forward group. Can we trade you Zach Hyman? You hold him through the expansion draft and through the summer for a 4th round pick and future considerations. At the end of summer, you return him to us, and we'll give you, and that 4th becomes a 3rd round pick. Like, can they do that? I don't know, but like, probably could advertise it, right?
I don't see. I imagine if it's one of those I feel like if it's premeditated, then no. Like, if I feel
but there's
like
nothing in
one
the
of those
rules
things
against it.
I feel like it's one of the because I don't know if that would be considered like I don't know. I'd have to look at the CBA. We'd have to ask like
I'll ask Patrick Johnson because he would know this stuff. Patrick Johnson's like an encyclopedia of this kind of shit.
Yeah, my friend is, and I have a friend of mine. She just graduated from BCIT for HR, and she loved reading she actually read the NHL CBA because she actually found it fascinating, and she was interested to see what it's like. Okay, and I'm sure she could tell us as well. But like. I almost imagine that it's one of those if it accidentally shook out that way, it would be okay, but it feels like almost like it almost feels like if it's like, say, if there was ever any, it could be seen as tampering or like some sort of like someone could file a charge on that one if they think there was something fishy.
Seattle could be question. Like,
but wouldn't you rather have would you not rather have Zach Hyman than the third overall pick though? Or the third?
Yeah, of course,
rounder,
but like they can't afford it, right? Like so, this from the Canucks' perspective,
especially
like,
if you've heard the UFA terms or the rumors of how much Zach Hyman wants, like
they can afford
$5 million.
Yeah, and he turned it down. Like that's unreal. But anyway,
or that apparently that's not true. But like even paying him $5 million is insanity. Yeah. Oh my god.
So from the Canucks' perspective. Say the Leafs sign Zach Hyman to like a $4 million deal. Like they basically give him the Tyler Toffoli contract or something, and they move money out somehow, and they're able to retain Hyman on like a pretty decent ticket. And from the Canucks perspective, they're like, okay, we can't afford to shed any of our young guys. We really need to keep all our picks. Let's just offer the ability to protect someone so that they don't lose them to Seattle for free. So for a fourth round pick,
and Toronto's in such win now mode. They wouldn't really want your prospects because they want pieces that are going to help them now, especially if they're trading a Hyman or a Rielly or something, right?
Yeah,
like they
want, it would make sense
pieces for now.
Yeah, so it would make sense if you're Vancouver. You're like, well, we can't afford any of your very good players, but hey, we'll protect one for you for like a decent price. I would. Because you can't trade for him because you can't afford to give up anything that you value at this moment. And any of the players you do have that you're not protecting are worthless. So, I mean, if it's legal, I am absolutely taking credit for this idea. If it's illegal, I did not pitch this idea, and it is not my fault if the Canucks get fined for tampering or circumvention or whatever it is.
Fast forward to like September when I'm back to looking for another coach because you've been plucked as like a capologist by some team. Yeah, it's like so Cody works for the Minnesota Wild now. We'll miss him dearly. Yeah.
You know that commercial where it's like the taco commercial and they're like, "Do you want hard taco or soft taco?" And the girl's like, "Why not both?" And then they celebrate like, "Wah!" It's like that. Where I'm just like, "Hey guys, why don't you just hold a player for a pick and then give him back to him at the end of summer?
Stop being sad. Why don't you just stop being sad? Just circumvent the cap.
Yeah, how hard can it be?
Yeah, like why don't you do that? Okay, and then the other question I wanted to ask because in regards to this is regardless of whether or not it does seem like it's very much heading for whether that's this summer or next summer that Rielly won't be a Leaf for much longer because they can't really afford him. I guess, and again, Rielly's from Vancouver. There was already like the joke. There was already like people freaking out because he was wearing a YVR sweater. I guess in his end of season availability. That oh my god, he's gonna want to trade to the Canucks or something, right? But in reality, he is someone they should target. Like he's absolutely a type of player that they should be looking at. If it wasn't for the fact that he's another left defenseman rather than a right defenseman, which they need more, I would say do whatever it takes. This one I'd say take it a little easy, be conscious about what you're doing because you already have Quinn Hughes. But if he were willing to come to Vancouver, what kind of contract, like what's a reasonable price for what he's able to do that you think the Canucks could that would be worth exploring for them?
Well, they can't. But if they did somehow, like, if money just disappeared off their books, like, you would probably be looking at trying to give him, like, the Shabbat contract.
That's
something like that.
That's
Maybe
close to like six. That's close to like
yeah,
8 million, is it not?
it's like
Yeah, okay.
7.34 or something like that. It's some kind
I
of weird
am.
number, but
I
that's like kind
imagine
of
that's
the
what kind of
idea.
close. Yeah, I imagine that's close to what he's getting.
Yeah.
Although, and age being a factor as well. He is 27. He'll be 28 by the time that next contract starts. Yeah, I mean, you have Oh yeah, Shabbat is making $8 million. Yeah, Shabbat's making $8 million. Yeah, I imagine that's what he could fetch. He could probably get a little bit more from a really desperate team. If he doesn't care, if it's not so much about winning, he could probably get a decent
I'm sure Vegas
clip
is going to be
higher.
in on him.
Oh yes, I'm sure Vegas will find a way to like trade
Yeah.
Hey, there's the real secret. You play like you want Morgan Rielly, but you were actually just pushing him to the Knights so you could get Shea Theodore. That's what the Canucks plan is. This is how I win, right?
So this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Vegas is going to trade Robin Lehner and Max Pacioretty to the Canucks in exchange for shit that they can throw on LTIR, and then with like the Eriksson and Holtby and Beagle and Furland, all four of them are just going to be thrown on LTIR for Vegas so that they can sign Morgan Rielly to a $12 million contract, and it's going to be this bright shiny toy for them to play with. They still have a backup, and the Canucks come out smelling like a rose. They've got nothing else. They give away 14 draft picks. They still keep all their prospects. It's going to be the most brilliant play that Jim Benning has ever thought of. He's already got the relationship with Kelly McCrimmon. This is what's going to happen. I'm calling it right now.
Oh my God.
Morgan Rielly to the Vegas Golden Knights for a bunch of crap.
Part of me almost wonders if he's not high profile enough for Vegas to want him. Because, he's not. Sorry, we only trade for captains, for former captains. That's our rule. Because Mark Stone, Pacioretty, Pietrangelo, all captains, all guys who were captains. Morgan Rielly might not be A-list enough for them.
Maybe they'll go for Bo Horvat.
Yeah. Oh God, please don't.
I put that in the ethos. That's a bad sign. Let's move on to the next topic, because I do not want that quote to resonate. But
yeah, that was into the Canuck first. That was into the Canuck first. Maybe we'll do that a little bit more. Maybe we'll do some other kind of weird contract stuff.
We should speculate more so we can put things in the ethos, and then if we're ever right, we can just clip it and be like, "See, we knew."
We knew it. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
So the other thing that happened in the past couple days was Mark Scheifele's very, 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 very dangerous hit on Jake Evans at the conclusion of Game 1 of the Winnipeg Jets versus the Montreal Canadiens. He was suspended 4 games in a shocking turn of events from the Department of Player Safety, where they did something actually kind of reasonable. In the following day since, Scheifele has said that he was really trying to prevent the goal, which is the most come on bruh moment I've ever seen in my life. Paul Maurice went to bat for him, saying it was a hockey play and he was trying to prevent the goal, which again, come on bruh.
Yeah.
But he's the coach. He has to. If he went to the press conference and was like, yeah, it was a shitty hit. My player's an asshole.
If there's one thing coaches are always going to do, they're always going, even if they don't agree with that, they're going to back their player, because at the very least it takes the heat off of the player a little bit and puts it more on them in the public eye. And they want to focus the attention and change the narrative a little bit. Coaches will do that. I don't read in when coaches say stuff like that, don't read into it that much. It's really not worth your time. They're never going to come. It's like the whole when a player says they're happy here and then it comes out that they wanted to trade.
They've been demanding a trade for months.
Right. They're never going to come out and say, in the same way that a player's never going to come out and say, oh, I hate it here, I want out this second. A coach is never going to come out and be like, oh, yeah, our player did a garbage thing and he should be ashamed of himself. They're just not going to do that. So
never forget, in 15 years or 16 years of the salary cap era, the most brutal honesty we've ever had from a player or a coach is when Roberto Luongo, in reference to discussions of him being traded, he said, "My contract sucks." That's the most honest thing that's ever happened from a player when it came to actually discussing like player movements or whatever. So
incredible.
But of course, Maurice is going to take the most boring, bland. Yeah, that's my guy. I got his back, bro.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure as the resident Jets fan, you are you're just like, yeah, you know what? Like Evan should have had his head up. I'm sure that's is that your take? That was
absolutely my take. No, I saw that and I was like, I mean, I think
you were immediately like he gone. Like you're
I think I said it in my my solo episode. I was like, the Jets haven't played since last Monday. They're going to be coming completely flat. They're going to look like shit because they haven't played in so long. Habs are riding this giant wave of momentum from their Toronto comeback game. Like, they're going to just steamroll the Jets. I didn't expect that to end the game. And yeah, when I saw the hit, I was like, yeah, Scheifele, you're done. Like, your playoffs are completely over. You've put your team at a huge disadvantage because you are going to be suspended, and I would be shocked if you weren't. And sure enough, he's gone 4 games, which is, I almost want to say it's the Department of Player Safety being like, that's how many games we think the Jets are going to last. Because if they push it to like a game 6 or game 7, he in trouble, because Joel Edmondson basically said as much in the post game when he was like, we're going to make his life a living hell in the next game, which is like, oh no, code shit is about to go down if this goes to a game 6 or 7, which I hate. But I saw somebody say that Joel Edmondson should be suspended for saying that. And I saw some people like flip out about that. Like, I'm not like, at first I was kind of like, I don't know about that. But like, I was like, first of all, you should never say that. You can't say that. Like, you just can't. Yeah. That's. But in a way, you're kind of like, maybe not suspended, but like fine at least. Like, he does have a point in the sense of like, yeah, you should not, players should not be saying that. That's like premeditated. That's basically implying premeditated, I'm going to injure him if he comes back, which is, again, another eye for an eye, not good. That doesn't help anybody. I will say this, like, I think you could make an argument for the fact that Scheifele should have gotten officially what, like, I guess is what Nazem Kadri got against the Bruins a couple years ago, where it's like, it's a series length suspension. So it's like, however long the rest of the series is against the Canadiens, he should be done for. But as far as just like a standard game suspension is, I do think like, okay, 4 games is understandable. I think you could have been a little bit higher on it. I think it could have been a little more, but the fact that there at least seem to be giving out proper suspensions is good to see. And, Mark Scheifele talked about how he felt it was too long. It was overkill. Like, not overkill. He didn't say that, but like, he said it was excessive, which
it was excessive,
but he wasn't going to fight it.
He's right in the sense of it's excessive when you compare it to all the other suspensions that have happened. That shouldn't be. That should be normal. What he got should be a normal suspension. That should be, and I think I tweeted yesterday, like, normalize having longer suspensions for dangerous hits. Like, that should be, players should be going into a situation where they do something like that expecting to get dinged with 4 games or something, with 3 or 4 games. Like, that should be guaranteed, regardless of who you are, what your history is, what have you. Mark Scheifele, I believe, doesn't have a history. Doesn't have a suspension history, but he should still get 4 games for what that kind of hit. That was reckless.
Absolutely.
It clearly he could have done a lot more damage than luckily Jake Evans had ended up with. It seems like, at the very least, it seems like it's just a concussion, which is still serious, but like, it could have been worse. And it's good that hopefully this becomes the norm. Like, it shouldn't be considered. It's considered excessive just because of the precedent set. It should not be as we go forward.
Yeah, I agree. It's
as far as that's.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm interrupting.
I was just going to say that I appreciated the fact that Scheifele was like, I'm not even going to contest the suspension because he doesn't want to be a distraction for his team. That's admirable enough because like you could have the Kadri situation where it was a blatant attempt to knock out a player who was unsuspecting like a hit. In his case, I mean, he thinks he was going for the puck. He wasn't, but like because he could be like,
You
I
can
mean,
tell
he
yourself
probably
anything.
has a case where he could be like, hey, like when was the last 4 game suspension for charging? Like this is a bit excessive, and I don't have the history. He could theoretically
Try and make that case
try and make a
which would
case
be
for
bad
it,
because yeah,
right? But
would be
he's
super
smart
bad.
enough to be like, I'm not going to do that because it's just like whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be that guy, which
Yeah, no.
it's the least he could do given the fact that he blatantly tried to injure a kid on his fucking birthday, all because he was having a shitty game. And that's
Yeah, he had a
like
rough
anyone
go.
who's watched the Jets, like obviously I have, as I've spoken about way too much on this program. Uh, he always plays with an edge in general. Like he's usually like, in scrums, stuff like that. But that game, it seemed like it wasn't just that he was in every scrum. He was blatantly and obviously pissed off at the end of every scrum. He just came away like he was just playing pissed off the entire night. You could see it when he was on his back check. He didn't even look at the puck. He was just trying to hurt the kid. So at the very least, if he can just be like, yeah, I'm not even going to try and defend my actions, even though I think I was going for the puck. It was a bit excessive, but I'm not going to fight it, which might just be hockey player for talk for like, yeah, I know I fucked up.
Yeah,
Which,
maybe. And
kudos,
yeah,
I
and
guess.
to kind of put a cap on this, we're not gonna repeat any of what people said, but there were some people, like in regards to the whole Scheifele having an off night sort of thing, who made some we'll say distasteful suggestions about why that might be. We're not gonna say what they are because they're not things that we should be talking about. They're not things that we should be speculating because it's none of our business when you do that. Like do it to say anything about those things. And like as journalists, our job is to report on what happens. You can't just be but there are like lines about, there are ethics and lines about, you don't speculate, especially on very serious things like some people were doing. And some people who are reporters and should know better than to say those kinds of things in a public space without having any information or any intel to go off of or back that up. Even if they did, in fact, even if you do have intel, those are things you don't talk about and those are things you don't mention because it's not your business. And don't talk about those things. Like there was the situation in a similar situation earlier this year. There was a reporter in Philadelphia who mentioned something about Carter Hart's like mental health or something about his mental health. And it was super out of bounds. Like it's super out of bounds to talk about that stuff. And it's just as out of bounds to do what some people talked about in regards to Mark Scheifele this time. Like whether or not hit was bad, that does not give you a right to talk about those specific types of things. It does not give you the opportunity to start speculating on why this speculating on different darker stuff about why a player might have this.
He just had a bad game and did something stupid. Like that's all it needs to be.
Yeah, and even if it were true, we don't think it doesn't matter. It's none of your business. You don't. It's absolutely not your. It's not your business to talk about it. So don't. Yeah. So like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyways,
sorry. One thing I did want to ask you, as we kind of transition and talking to just about hockey in a hockey sense. Montreal's leading Winnipeg right now, 1-0 in game 2. It's a close game, not a lot of shots, playing a much more defensive game.
Yeah.
As far as the Jets are concerned, losing Scheifele for that long is huge. Do you think this kills the series for them? Are they done? And are they done quickly? They're done that quick.
They're so fucked. Like
even with Connor Hellebuyck playing as well as he is, like you don't think so?
It doesn't matter. Like their decor isn't that good to begin with. They basically needed to match goal scoring for goal scoring in order to have a chance. without Scheifele, they lose like one of their only producers in the playoffs this year. Pierre-Luc Dubois is playing like shit. He has not looked good all season. Paul Stastny is also out with injury. Like their depth that everyone said like was super deep against the Oilers is getting exposed right now because they don't have good depth at all.
They don't have a lot of depth. No.
Yeah, so they're cooked straight up.
Yeah.
They're so cooked.
I'll say this. I think they still have a bit of a chance here. Specifically because Montreal can't score that much either. They don't have that many they have more scores, but they still really haven't been able to put the puck in the net. And I don't think I do not think they're very good teams. Not because of the players themselves. I think they're coached very weirdly, and I don't think I think the coaching has them playing down a level than they should be in the right hands.
Yeah.
But also the Oilers had Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They didn't win that series, and Jets didn't win that series by necessarily outscoring the Oilers as much as they shut down a team that had two offensive firepowers who can generally just win games at will, like on their own will. So I would not say they're completely dead here. Like, I think it's possible. The one issue being that their biggest strength is their goaltending in Connor Hellebuck, who, while he had an off night yesterday, even right now he's playing well. But the problem is the Canadiens do have the cancel out button in Carey Price, who's playing quite well in his own right. Really living up to that contract right now, like as far as the Canadiens are concerned. So I don't think they're completely cooked, but I will say I think their odds are slim. The odds are slim, but I don't think they're completely gone. I don't think they're gone.
They're not as cooked as the next series we'll get into, which is the Vegas Colorado season, because Vegas put on their best performance of the playoffs to lose by 1 goal to Colorado
in OT. Yeah,
it took
on a bit of a weird penalty call.
Yeah, fair enough. But the fact that it took them playing their best hockey to make it a 1-goal game is like, oh man, I said this in the solo episode, but like, it doesn't matter who wins this Jets-Habs series. They're just going to get slaughtered by Colorado. Because I don't think Vegas has it in them to win 2 or 4 out of the next, 6. It's just not going to happen. That's such a big ask.
Yeah, I will say, the prospect of Montreal playing Colorado, specifically you could call it the Battle of the Patrick Roy, or more accurately, the renewed rivalry of the Nordiques and the Canadiens. Yeah. Like, that's kind of cool. That's fun. If they do, if this does happen, the Avs have to be allowed to wear that Nordiques reverse retro on the road, right? Like, they have to. They have to allow them. You're going to tell me, like, literally those jerseys were made specifically to be worn for a game. I would imagine at least what would have been their one road game in Montreal had the season played as normal. You're telling me that, come on, the NHL has to give special clearance to let them wear those Nordiques jerseys on the road. Come on. If you're not, huge missed opportunity.
For sure.
I'm partially getting ahead of myself here, but like, as far as, because you never know, Vegas is a team that could very well come back, but oh man, the Avs are so good. They're such a good team. Like, the fact that Mikko Rantanen was their leading goal scorer this year, like their leading point getter, but come on, but I think we all know that he is not their best forward, like as great as he is. And that's the scary part, is that Rantanen would probably be the best forward on most NHL teams. But here he's only the third or the fourth, like the fourth most lethal scorer on the team, depending on who you ask. And that is nuts. Like, it's unreal just how much depth they have. And from a scoring standpoint, Joe Sakic has done an incredible job at building that team up around Nathan McKinnon, and they have Gabriel, they have Landeskog, they have Makar, they have Bowen Byram, who's still a rookie, and he's only going to have better.
Yeah, like, he's not even on their team, and he's probably
he's not even playing right now. Like, I don't think he's. I think he's a healthy scratch right now.
Yeah. They have Newhook.
Yeah, they have Newhook.
They're so
It
good.
is.
Unreal.
It is. They gave up Tyson Berry and
Nope.
and Alex Kerfoot. They
I will
got
say
rid of.
they lucked out a bit when they traded Duchesne for Ottawa's first rounder and it was unprotected, and Ottawa completely imploded. So they got a top 5 pick. Like that's kind of a freebie, but like
That's kind of. But you could still
those
mess
are the
it up
bets
and
you
take the
wanna
wrong
take.
player. Yeah.
Like people forget
Well,
the
I
Avs
guess-
had Ryan O'Reilly and Nathan McKinnon and Gabe Landeskog theoretically in their primes, like the start of their primes, and they were dog shit. That's why it's like you can't
That was
just be
before
like,
Sakic, I believe. Yeah, or
I think it was
when
like
he
his
just started.
first year when he took over, and they booted Waugh out as the coach, and it was like Sakic's like first year, I believe, because he sat on that core that wasn't doing anything, and then he made the moves in the following year.
Yeah, because they had the 1 year with Jared Bednar where it just went completely belly up, and then they didn't
and
panic.
this is
That was the
why
interesting part.
like I hate when people are just like, oh, the Canucks core, like it's just gonna only go up from here, and it's like it doesn't matter. Like don't forget, like Colorado traded Ryan O'Reilly off of a core that included Landeskog and Nathan McKinnon to Buffalo. And who was also on that team when Ryan O'Reilly was there? Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel was on that team. Like they had like the elite of 1-2 punches of centers. And it didn't matter.
In the wrong hands, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like that's why the Canucks core doesn't really matter if the guy in charge of building around it can't do it.
Right.
Like the guys are going to age out because they can't wait too long, and Bo Horvat's going to be a Ryan O'Reilly who gets traded away because they fucked it. Straight up. Like that's the risk that they run and ran last year when they decided to not continue the all-in approach that they had for the previous year.
Yeah, when you flip flop, you run into problems. You have to kind of stick to something. And with the Avs, the fact that they've done so well, like at even just like making the trades to like fill out the roster, and even making taking on some risk to a certain extent. I forget exactly who it was they traded off of their defensive group. I think it was they traded someone to Chicago for Brandon Saad, whose name I am completely
Nikita Zadorov, which
Nikita
they picked
Zadorov,
up
that's
in
right.
the Ryan O'Reilly trade, which
Right,
is
and he was
so funny.
And he was pretty good for them for quite a while, and they traded him, brought in Brandon Saad, who's a little bit of an older guy, who's done very well for them, and then used kind of the room that they had to bring in Devon Taves from the Islanders. They have just done such an incredible job at keeping that team well built. They have gotten to the same level of success as the Knights, if not more, kind of in the opposite way. Both of these teams are regardless of whether Vegas loses this series or not, they're a testament to a certain different kind of building roster construction, the way that they've gone about it. Obviously, got a little bit of help from expansion draft and other sorts of things, being able to accumulate those kinds of assets. But both of these teams, what they've done really well is they've done a very good job at being able to build a relatively depth heavy, full of two franchises just full of depth, but they got there in different ways. And the Canucks need to learn from teams like that. And the fact that the Avalanche, there's no team that can really unseat the Avalanche as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you feel, but I don't think Tampa can do it. I don't think Carolina can do it. I don't think Boston or the Islanders can do it. I'm
curious at this point if they're going to go 16-0 in the Western Conference before they run into trouble. That's just how it feels to me. Maybe Vegas peels one.
I think Vegas is going to win one. I think Vegas is going to get one.
I think they'll probably win. I feel like Colorado's probably going to win Game 3. Vegas will rally to win 1, but I think that's going to probably be it. Because we can talk about the 2 Eastern Conference teams right now as we segue to examine how the competition they face.
Yeah, the one thing I did want to say, before we go, is that Philip Grubauer has been awesome for the Avalanche. Literally, my one worry with this team is that the only Achilles heel for the Avalanche is that Grubauer is a bit injury prone, and that's the one thing that might unseat them is if Philip Grubauer got hurt that could undo it very quickly if you have to go to Devin Dubnyk as your starter for the rest of the way.
Right.
Yeah, Philip Grubauer, that's he's playing very well. Holy, yeah, go ahead. Go into the rest. Let's go into the rest here.
Okay, yeah. So it's like the funny thing is like I have not watched the Boston New York Islanders series. Like I'm still on the whole like Islanders. I just don't find them enjoyable to watch.
No, NyQuil.
And Boston, I mean they score a lot, but I don't know. I don't find them fun to watch. Like that the
No.
Eastern Conference in general like doesn't really entertain me in general. Like Tampa Bay is the funnest team to watch as far as I'm concerned. Carolina, okay,
whoa.
but I think you like the branding a lot more and like the vibes. They're fun.
They're a
Aho's fun.
Fun team. Hell,
Martin Nakash is fun, but you're
Jakob
crazy if you think
Slavin
they're
is fun. Come on.
Come on,
buddy.
Relax. Tampa
Wow.
Bay is the fun team in this division. They run through teams and they make victories look so good. Whereas Carolina, like they've had to go to war to like that game last night with the overtime winner. That was a war to get there. Whereas like when Tampa wins, it's just like you're watching a team at its peak. You know what I mean? Like that to me is interesting to watch. That's why like I think it is going to be a Tampa Bay Colorado final, and maybe Tampa repeats, which would be cool. But I mean, Colorado, the way they're just running through everybody, it's just kind of like Tampa might win 2 games.
Yeah, there's like no, the Avalanche they look so strong and barring unforeseen circumstances of like injuries or like something else, like I don't see how it's going to take a lot for someone to defeat a healthy, fully charged Avalanche team. Tampa might be the one I think that has the best chance of doing it if they get there, just because they have Andrei Vasilevsky who's playing incredibly right now as well. The goaltending in these playoffs has been really good for the most part, have been pretty darn good. I think like there have been a lot of situations where I feel like the goaltending has lost teams games like this year. Like Nedeljkovic had the bit of the weird iffy one in game 1, but that was his first blip the whole playoffs. Like he had been doing very well up to that point. And I will say that I almost think the opposite with the Lightning. Like I almost think that they're kind of boring to watch in the sense of they're so strategically well built and like that they win a lot of games when they're not like the best team on the ice or they're not the hardest working group. Like they're very much the like behind the eight ball. Like the 2 games in Carolina that they won, I very much was like Carolina is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at them. And they're being outshot to hell. And Vasilevsky is just like, okay, I'm just going to stop every puck you throw at me. And literally you guys will find 2 shots that work. And even as we got into like game 1 of that series and the Hurricanes just came out flying in that first period of game 1, I remember thinking literally right to myself, oh, this is a game where Tampa's going to win, isn't it? Because this is very much their thing, is the other team is going to just dominate sometimes, like depending on who you run into. Like, the Lightning can absolutely do the same thing to other teams, but there are a lot of cases, the Panthers series being a big example of that, where the Panthers were the better team for the most part like in most of those games. The Lightning just found the way to grind it out and win. Boston I kind of throw into the same category as a team that kind of like that, where they win a lot of games where they're just kind of, okay, we go to work now sort of thing. And they just they're like, once they decide it's their time to take over, they're like, okay, like they flip the switch on and they go. I definitely think that, I will say this, I think the Hurricanes are the most interesting team to watch. They play high-flying hockey. They're very good defensively anyway, which is like, they're a triple threat. They went back to Peter Mrazek for game 3 after Nedeljkovic had a couple weird nights in the early going, and he did well. He was very good coming back in. And then Sebastian Aho's just in a league of his own. He's incredible. I think the Hurricanes are going to win. I think the Hurricanes are going to win that series. I think they are going to surprise people a little bit more than what they're expecting. The Boston-New York series, I'm very much in the same boat as you. I do not think it's that interesting. Tuukka Rask, I will say Tuukka Rask has been very good. And again, I like that he gets his due. Ilya Sorokin and Semyon Varlamov have been both very good for the Islanders as well.
Yeah.
The goal, both of these series have been a little bit of a goalie battle. Like, they've been low scoring. But the Tampa Bay Carolina series has been much more interesting for the low scoring games they've been getting, whereas Boston New York is just a snooze because that's the Islanders. Because that's the Islanders, and the Bruins are okay playing that game. They don't mind. Yeah. They can play the high flying when they want to, but they don't have to, so they're not going to here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what else are you gonna say on those series? I guess
there's not much you can really say because like the Boston New York one, like it just seems kind of like. I think realistically either team will probably put up a good fight against the winner of Carolina Tampa Bay, but my mindset is just so like stuck on like Colorado's just been so dominant so far this playoffs that it's hard for me to be like, you know, any one of those four is going to like unseat Colorado's dominance because they are making it look so easy when they are on. Like that first game against Vegas, like so I had just said, yeah, like straight up, like I had said, the Jets were coming off 8 days break because of like just how long they had, or how much time had expired since they beat Edmonton. Colorado was coming off of a giant break too because they had swept the Blues and were sitting for a long time waiting for Vegas to finish their 7-game series against Minnesota. And what did they do coming out of an 8-day break? They destroyed Vegas, making mince meat out of them, just toying with them the entire game, start to finish. Like it's filthy what they do when they get a lead. Like they do not relent. It is disgusting what they can accomplish.
Incredible. Oh my God. Yeah. Like I felt so bad for Robin Lehner in that situation because like I do not blame Robin Lehner for that game whatsoever. Like, clearly the whole team got outclassed, but I felt bad for him because literally he'd been sitting for a while. And I don't know why they would think to do this. I understand that Fleury needs a break, but I have no idea why you throw Lehner into game 1. Like, that was a bad call. I think you go to him for game 2 if you want to give Fleury rest. I think you have to give Fleury the first game regardless, and then and then give him his night off and let Lehner go in for game number 2 when they're a little bit more prepped and ready. Like, I felt very bad for him in that case. I was with my friend at the time when that game was going on, and she was saying to me like, I feel so bad for the other team as it starts to get up on the score. Like, you got to let your foot off the pedal here. And I'm like, I agree with you in minor hockey stance, but the NHL level, no. I better see you going for it. You better be looking for 10. Like, if you're up by 10, I expect you to go for 11. Like, that's how it goes at the NHL, like at the pro levels, right? I think I understand like minor hockey. Yes, you should be nice to your opponent. You should be a good sport.
Yeah.
But
don't score 12 goals and like sell you after like the 11th or 13th. Like you don't need to do that. No.
When you're a kid, it's important to instill good sportsmanship and everything like that. That's important.
But in the NHL playoffs,
but in the pro level, no. Yes, goal differential, things like that matter. Do not let your foot off the pedal. You go. The Avalanche did that. Now you could make the argument that doing so led to the absolute garbage shenanigans we got at the end of that game because the Knights all suddenly were like, hey, well, we're out of this game. Better start injuring some people.
Better try and take people out for the next game.
and again, like, if you want to tie it, and we can tie this back, frankly, a little bit to the Scheifele talk, is like the whole where he was talking about how it seemed excessive. How many games did Ryan Reeves get for, cross-checking the goaltender, then punching a guy while he's down, like punching Ryan Graves in the face, putting his knee on his neck, and then pulling out his hair, literally.
Yeah.
He got 2 games? Was that? Like, he got 2 games? Garbage. Like, that's bullshit. Like, come on. That should have been your playoffs should be over for that. Like, You shouldn't be able to come back for that sort of thing. Like, that's garbage. And that, again, that's in the sense of, like, that comes back in the whole sense of, like, are they giving enforcers benefit of the doubt? Like, are they giving enforcers a lighter punishment than superstars? Which is absolutely the wrong way to be handling that. But I don't want to get mad about this all over again. Either way, yeah, the Avalanche are a tough out, and it was just like a masterclass of how good they are. It's going to be interesting to see if they can pull that same thing off with when they don't have last change and when they don't they aren't going to necessarily always have the matchup they want in these 2 games in Vegas. But I don't see any way out of here where they're not holding the cup, barring unforeseen, knock on wood, barring anything else, right?
Right. It's because man, we didn't even really talk about their whole Reeves thing, because like the whole pulling out like a chunk of hair thing, like that's just so insane. Like,
and that was like that flew under the radar.
Yeah, all anyone talked about was just how badly they got destroyed, that you like completely forget like Reeves spent the final like minute or 2 minutes of the game or whatever that was. Sorry, 20
literally
minutes.
Trying to
hurt people for the purposes of maybe taking guys out by the next game. Like, just absolute clown shit. But nobody cared, because all they cared about was there's like, oh, Reeves gonna get suspended, doesn't matter. But you know what's crazy? They fucking killed him 7-1. That's unreal. It's like, that's how good they are. They don't care that some guy tried to assault their players, because they destroyed them where it actually matters, on the score sheet. And they're up 2-0 in the series. The other couple series are all pretty close, really tight. Carolina, Tampa Bay, they're 2-1 for Carolina. Game. It is like a playoff game. It's like a playoff series out there.
It's like a playoff game.
Boston, they're up 2-1. Colorado up 2-0. And now it looks like Winnipeg, Habs are about to go up 2-0. They are currently up 1-0 on the score chart with 8 minutes left in the third.
Still
that
time.
One's pretty well.
Still time,
without Scheifele, that's a big ask. Maybe they score late, but
Ehlers can take control of games when he wants to. Like he's
very good. Yes.
He is very good. Like it's not entirely possible that he doesn't just will them to victory. And I guess the one last thing I wanted to ask you about, because we didn't get any questions this week. So I wanted to ask kind of a question that normally I think maybe this would be kind of like something that we do on like the on the off the post shows, but I wanted to ask you because I don't know if you mentioned you haven't watched any of the Islanders Bruins games really, but they have been like I have seen some clips like Nassau Coliseum. The Islanders are playing like their games there, like just nearly a full house, I believe. They have like fully vaccinated sections. I think they have social distance sections and fully vaccinated sections, so they have a little bit of both going on. And like this is the last time they'll play there before they move into their new Belmont Arena, which looks really cool. And they're finally for the second time. They're leaving for the second time. Their farewell season at Nassau for the second time in like 5 years after the whole Brooklyn mess. I wanted to ask you the question, like, let's say every arena was closing in like the next, I don't know, 5 years. Let's say every arena closed in the next like half decade. That's currently in the NHL. With the exception being like some of like the newest ones, okay?
Yeah.
If there were like, what are some of the older venues in the NHL that you would want to visit most before they closed, with like some obvious exceptions? Like, for example, like I would say, for example, like Madison Square Garden's out of the picture because obviously they're never moving. Like they would never. There's nowhere to move in New York, so they're never leaving. And they just did like billions of dollars of renos on it, so they're not moving. So like out of the arenas that could potentially see an end date, what would you pick? Where would you want to go most?
Well, sorry, my cat is
That's okay.
Just begging for attention here.
We're a pro pets podcast, as everybody knows. Yeah. Put Colson got a dog, I believe, or
yes,
has
he did.
a dog.
A very teeny tiny dog, and it's very cute.
Very cute.
It sucks because I actually wouldn't have minded going. Like basically, the times that I have watched the Islanders Boston series, all I've noticed is just how raucous the crowd is. They'll still be as raucous in their new arena, like it's gonna be whatever. But it would have been nice to like have been in like any of the Islanders like old arenas, really. Like it just because the crowd's always like pretty nuts. The Habs arena, that's not going anywhere. but like I just like in general, like I really want to see like a Habs game live in their arena. I've never been. I don't think I've ever been to any other arenas to watch
Oh,
hockey.
really?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I'm trying to think if I have.
I mean, that's not too. I mean, I've only been to 2, so that's actually not. That's not that surprising. Like
You've doubled my efforts.
Yes, I've doubled your efforts by just happening to have lived in 2 places that kind of had that had NHL arenas nearby.
Yeah.
I guess for me, Bell Center is one of them for sure. It's I feel like it's the closest thing you could get to like say. You know how everyone says like you haven't experienced soccer until you've like seen an English Premier League game. In like you've been to the UK.
You've been to Wembley or where?
Yeah, exactly. Like or any of like Trafford, like any of those old stadiums there. Like you haven't experienced soccer until you've seen it in Europe or like one of those like. I feel like you haven't like. I almost feel like that's the same way. Like you haven't experienced hockey at its like purest form until you've seen like a game, like a Canadiens game in Montreal or a Leafs game in Toronto. Like that's like I think Vancouver's getting close to there, but I feel like this is very much an original 6 kind of thing or like sort of thing where it's like Boston
for sure.
or New York or something. Bell Center would be up there for that very reason. I feel like that's in itself is just a different experience all its own. In its own just stratosphere. And I guess if I had to pick if I were going to pick kind of like a truly older venue, like I would say, and I guess this is a good one to pick because there is guaranteed to be closing pretty soon. I would say the Saddle Dome in Calgary. Not because it's not necessarily the most, like fabled stadium in the NHL or anything, and Calgary is not exactly like necessarily the most glamorous spot in the NHL you could go to, but I do think that the Saddle Dome is one of the few buildings left that's still kind of in that still in that vein of this is a classic hockey building. Like any of the like all the luxury options that like all the luxury suites and like loge boxes and like all of the crazy new Disneyland amenities that lots of arenas have nowadays. Like the Saddle Dome does not have those things. It is very much. It was a building.
It is shaped like a saddle, and that's all there is to it.
It's kind of cool. I literally was thinking to myself, when they build the new building, it has to be the roof has to be saddle shaped, right? Like they have to redo that, find a way to redo that, don't they?
It'll be something else.
Yeah, it'll be something else. It'll be something normal. It'll be a normal look. It'll look like every other arena that you get. The Saddle Dome is very much one of I would argue, is the last building that's very much in that realm of this is as close as you would get to, say, seeing a Canucks game at the Coliseum or going to, like, Maple Leaf Gardens or the Montreal Forum or something like that, right? Like one of those, or the Boston Garden. Like one of those, like, truly old buildings that was literally just, hey, this is a slab of concrete we put seats in that's really loud. What's that? You want sushi? Get the hell out of here. We don't have that.
Out of here.
There are these old hot dog rollers from like the 90s. Then that's all we got. Get out. Take it and leave it. Like those are gone once the Saddle Dome leaves. So I would say that would be my pick out of the old ones.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. With that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the CreaseCast, episode number 119. I don't know how many it's been featuring me, but it's been a lot. They've been all wonderful.
Yeah.
We are going to hit you guys with another Off the Post. We're going to record that tomorrow. So if you are listening to this right now, which would be Saturday morning, send us your questions. We'll try and answer them on the Off the Post episode.
Yeah, we talk about all sorts of random stuff on there.
We sure do. Okay,
for only $5 a month.
Cat is just
on our
freaking the fuck out here.
Don't
forget to follow us on YouTube or on our Patreon. We have $1 and $5 tiers where we post exclusive content. Lachlan, where can the fine folks find you on social media avenues everywhere?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Lach and the Crease, and you can find my writing on lachandthecrease.com. I have articles that go up sometimes, yeah, those are. I have some ideas for like what I'm gonna do during the off season, some like new kind of things, some regular writing, but also like some new. We're gonna try some new stuff and just see what people like, and we'll do some cool stuff this summer. Well, I've got all this extra free time right now. Cody, where can they find you?
The fine folks can find me at Cody Sievertson on Twitter and on thecometsharvest.com. I believe I'm on Instagram, but I don't really use it that much. But yeah, give us a follow, give us some ratings, give us some reviews. We appreciate all of them.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye!
Bye!